that is taking place, and we are interviewing Petra Stušek, who is the director for 8 years now of Ljubljana Tourism. My name is Noah Charney. I'm an American professor and writer. Been living in Slovenia for more than a decade, and I am probably its most enthusiastic resident. Much more, we foreigners are usually much more excited about Slovenia than Slovenes are. We know it's just the best country on earth, and I try to convince Slovenes of that as well. And it's a pleasure to have a chat with you about Ljubljana as a tourist destination. So, first question, I mean, you've been director of Ljubljana Tourism for 8 years now. You've been many more years with the organization. What changes have you seen to Ljubljana as a tourist destination over, let's say, the last 10 years?
First of all, good morning to everyone and to you. I tend to agree with you that you foreigners are actually, used to open our eyes in the past because we took it a little bit for granted how beautiful our country is, but now we do cherish it as well. I've been, like you said, the director for 2 terms. However, that's not relevant because as a citizen, I've seen a lot of changes over a bit more than 10 years because Ljubljana went through a big change infrastructural-wise. So the big turnover was the closure of the city center for traffic. And with us, that doesn't mean that some can go in, some cannot go in. No, it's really it's really closed for the traffic, meaning that up until 9:30 in the morning, it's open for delivery for the vehicles with the special stickers, but not for the rest of them, not even for residents. And of course, the residents went ballistic at the beginning. But over the years, that's like 15 years now. Over the years, the walking zone has expanded. The atmosphere has changed in the city center. The small businesses came back in. The restaurants and bars could open up their spaces to the streets. Everyone could walk without being afraid to be endangered by the car or the bus. That actually changed the whole thing. So instead of first us locals going, to the seaside or someplace others to Slovenia, we love to stay in the city center for over a decade now. So first was the infrastructure change. And then over the past decades, tourism-wise, it has changed significantly 2 things. At the beginning, it was more MICE, so business, meetings, events, industry in Ljubljana. Now it's a good mixture of meetings, industry, and the leisure. And the second one is that we are spreading the flows much more through the events, different events, through new infrastructure, through opening the not known sweet spots also to the locals. So these are the things that are significantly changing lately.
That's something that I think everybody notices when they come to Ljubljana. At one point, maybe still, you had the largest pedestrianized percentage of the center of any city in Europe. And you really feel like that. The only vehicle you're likely to encounter is this lovely little electric minibus that will pick you up for free and deliver you anywhere else you want. So it's a really nice, welcoming place to stroll around. So maybe we've already covered this to some extent, but what do you consider Ljubljana's main advantages as a tourist destination? If you're going to choose from a small, charming European city, why choose Ljubljana?
Well, first of all, we should never consider ourselves as small. We're only small in the, let's say, a surface. That's a fact. However, everything else we have like the F and in the big league, and I mean that. The main advantage is definitely that is a majority of things, like the accommodations, like the venues, the attractions, the restaurants, the good people, the market. Everything is within the walking distance. So if you are in Ljubljana as a visitor, either business or a leisure one, you don't get caught in traffic jams. We locals do. I mean, I have to be honest. However, not the tourists, because because, like I said, everything is within walking distance, and we are actually the only destination in a very large circle around us that has 2 big congress and cultural venues. So that's really important for meetings industry. And we're also the only destination within 1,000 kilometers circle around that's European Green Capital, and that's also very significant on so many levels that affects the life of us locals, but also of tourism as a business, as a serious business.
That's especially important in this day and age. Things like safety, cleanliness, and green is very important for tourists who are being conscientious in their travel choices. So going to Ljubljana is a perfect destination for someone with that in mind.
The most important thing is that that we, as the local authority, do not say that. That the most important thing is that people actually experience that, they believe in it, they tell to other people. That means it's real, and with us it's real. I mean, it's in our, the sustainable approach was in our DNA since ever. We just didn't know how to call it, you know. Yeah, so that's the way how we live, and that's this genuine approach, which we are now finally proud of, and we are saying it out loud. That's actually what visitors feel when they come to Ljubljana. And I have to say, as being director of a local organization who's responsible for development and promotion of tourism, I'm not very satisfied when foreigners are coming to Ljubljana and are overly ecstatic of how beautiful and charming and nice and friendly and green it is, because that means that they had too low expectations. You know, so we're still working on that, but more and more people are telling that instead of us as local authority by themselves, which is, you know, word from mouth to mouth is for us the most precious, because it's also a very, I mean, we are very honest in our communication, but people tend to believe to peers more.
I mean, you're probably tired of the phrase hidden gem, which is used in every magazine article about Ljubljana or Slovenia, but people tend to feel like that because they don't have these expectations, and maybe they should by this point, because how often can it be hidden if it's in every magazine around the world? But it would be interesting to have people come with the expectations that it's just a gem, no longer hidden. I like that idea.
Yeah. It has pluses and minuses like everything. The hidden gem is not anymore for quite a few years. Not Ljubljana and Slovenia in general. However, we are very, very keen on focusing on balance. You know, we're not. We know that the over-tourism does not really happen in Ljubljana due to all the. How should I say, all the facts, all the scientific approaches. However, the important thing is the feeling of us locals. So that's why we are really keen on developing other parts of Ljubljana, of course, in cooperation with locals living there. It doesn't really help that you send visitors over there and the locals would not be ready for that, right? So we're very keen on, like I said, spreading the flows over there, because that means that the city center would stay pleasant for us locals and also for visitors, for that matter. So it's important that we, like I said, we grow tourism we continue growing tourism organically, and that we maintain balance. We are constantly monitoring the satisfaction of locals with development on tourism, and it's really above the average, because it's in the city center 67%, outside of the city center 72%. This is really high for a capital city European destination. And we're also monitoring the happiness of the foreigners when they come to Ljubljana, and it's also above the average, because of European capital average is 38% and ours is 80%. So it's like really, yeah. So it's quite a responsibility, but the responsibility mostly towards us who live there, but of course also towards the the visitors.
You bring up a good point, because it's one thing to go to a tourist destination where the locals have sort of had enough with the tourists. If you go to a place like, for example, Florence, which is full of tourists, but feels like in a congested way. And the locals, unless they're living off the tourists, feel there's sort of an imposition. But you never get that in Slovenia. Slovenes are delighted when people come and super happy when people want to stay longer and fall in love with their country. And you see that in Ljubljana as well. Now, one of the things we talked about is going outside the core center of Ljubljana to visit some neighborhoods. And I recently went through the Šiška neighborhood because I'm collaborating with Tourism Ljubljana on a new podcast called Beyond Ljubljana and doing little adventures outside the core city center, whether that's a short drive or just a short walk. Tell me a little bit about Šiška as a cultural quarter, which is being promoted to tourists in a new way.
Well, Šiška is much more than cultural quarter. It has a great infrastructure, also like interesting museums, like a computer museum where you can see things that we already forgot that were only like more than a decade ago still very relevant. Or good restaurants, or you can go even jog on the roof, for example. You know, there are so many things in Šiška that even us locals do not see them that way, that they're really excited to be there as a local tourist. So the main aim of developing, let's say, that's a kind of working title, cultural quarters, it's not cultural, it's so much more, would be to tell us locals how interesting these neighborhoods are and to take the walks there and to go to visit places there. And consequently, it's also interesting then to tourists as well. So the important thing that I'm bringing out is whatever we do, it's whatever we as local authority do, whatever we develop and then consequently promote is always with the first thought of us locals. Because not only we are the best promoters, and most enthusiastic, we're also the worst critics. That's true. You know, and there are critics that are, you know, because people are not satisfied, not really knowing why. But there are critics that you really need to listen to. So it's good to have this ongoing conversation. But people need to be interested to have an ongoing conversation with them. So that's why we started with Šiška to bring together the stakeholders there first. Then we talked to residents around them before we made this first organized event over there. And locals really loved it. They came. It was so great to see this square, like outside of city center, full of people for the whole day, and all with, you know, the even the kindergartens and the primary school kids came. So that's what really drives us. That's how we are going to develop it further.
It's a great approach, and I see it all the time when I'm doing research or presenting. I'm often informing Slovenes about how interesting their own country is, and they don't quite realize it, or their idea of what it was like is based on 20, 30 years ago when they were in school, and they don't realize just how exciting a place like Šiška has become. So one of the things that you encounter when you travel around Ljubljana are lots of very exciting free activities that anyone can participate in. And maybe you could name a couple of the events, concerts, facilities that are available to locals and tourists alike that are free of charge that people might stumble upon when they come to visit.
Well, the one thing that is typical for Ljubljana is its variety of events. We started with the change of infrastructure, and that also opened a lot of new spaces as a venue spaces, like new markets, squares, streets, and so forth. So we have in Ljubljana, which is approximately 300,000 which has approximately 300,000 inhabitants, we have more than 12,000 events, and a lot of them are really free of charge, which is really amazing for a destination like that, like ours. For example, now December is approaching, and on December 1st we are starting with the festivities on the streets, like the obvious Christmas market, but also concerts free of charge, the big concerts with the big Slovenian names and also some other music names from abroad. So the December one is definitely the one that is interesting. Then now it's still November, which is in Ljubljana a gourmet month. We tend to dedicate it to gourmet in general, which means that we have also wine path, for example, on the streets of Ljubljana, where you can have a really great fun with amazing Slovenian wines. And the Slovenian wines are the number one patriotism that we have. We love them. That's why we drink everything by ourselves. So we don't export much of them, but they're amazing. So yeah, these are the type of things that are basically happening on the streets all the time, and that makes the atmosphere of Ljubljana very attractive. In terms of infrastructure, is not free of charge, like, I don't know, Museum of Illusions or Ljubljana Castle. Oh, Ljubljana Castle you can actually enter free of charge to see it. However, there are really great stuff to be seen, like a puppet museum or even the Museum of Modern History, which are obviously not free of charge, but they're very worth to see. Or you can go into our National Gallery when you can see the original fountain of Francesco Roba. You can see that free of charge, but just don't exit without actually entering the National Gallery, because it has some really amazing pieces too, So there is a combination of really good value for your money, great value for your money, and things that you can do for free, yeah.
I feel like there's constantly something new and exciting on the horizon. Shortly, the new Rog Cultural Center will open. Can you tell us a little bit about what that will be?
Rog already opened, yeah, like 10 days ago, yeah. It's a really new, exciting place for creative culture. In a sense, it will have, now it has the shared space for everyone, every citizen, every local visitor, Slovenian visitor or foreign visitor, to go in. And not only to go either to public library or to have a coffee on one of those brilliant terrace, most beautiful terraces in Ljubljana, but they can also enter in one of the shared space. How do you call that? Craft shops to do whatever they want to create. One of the fun facts is that Ljubljana has the most creative people per square kilometer in Europe. Really? Yes, really. So that's why we really are a very creative city as well, and that reflects in Rog, for example. It's in majority it is open for creative industries and to be a shared space for everyone who's artistically leans to towards that area. Yeah.
I love these fun fact statistics, like most creative people per square kilometer in Europe. We have the most beekeepers per capita in the world, one for every 100 citizens. I think you have some other fun statistics to share with us, and you can totally check your cheat sheet on your phone. What sort of statistics might you think would be of interest to potential tourists?
Well, statistics can be very boring, but it also tells. I'll try to do it honestly. Tourism in Ljubljana is like 95% is foreign and only 5% is domestic, due to the fact, obviously, that it's a condensed city and we all know each other. So we tend to stay with the friends, locals. However, due to research, only 20% do not stay over in Ljubljana in one of the overnight capacities of tourists, which is a very high percentage. At 80% of visitors actually stay overnight. Only 20% are daily visitors. So that's quite an impressive fact. Then I know that 40% of people who come to Ljubljana, we know the demographics. It's majority of them are between 25 and 44 years old, which is, so the city attracts fairly young people. And 40% of them are coming with a partner, like in a couple, and then 20 solo, 20 with friends, 20 with family. So it's kind of a great mixture that says that we have offer for basically all demographics. What the fact that we are really proud of is that 37% are coming primarily for culture as a prime reason to come to Ljubljana. Not that they would come to Ljubljana on city break and say, oh, let's go to the event. And also pretty high percent, like 16%, primarily for gastronomy. So, yeah. So we are in an interesting city to discover or to come back.
Or to come back to. This is the thing, I only live 25 minutes from Ljubljana, but I can't wait to go in each time I have an excuse to. And I even like to stay over there too, even though I could easily drive home, because being there in the evening, waking up in the morning, being able to go to the market early, it's really fun. It's a wonderful city to visit. Maybe a last question for you. What are you excited about for the near future for Ljubljana Tourism that hasn't fired up quite yet?
Well, we are, like you said, constantly working on new events. The February is approaching, and we're gonna launch this platform called Lovefest, which means the festivity of love, and it on purpose starts on the 8th of February, which is our national day. It's the day of our greatest poet. So we're celebrating, not like the obvious law that the Valentine's Day is approaching. Not at all. We are celebrating the love for our culture, our Slovene words. That's where it starts. Then we are, throughout the whole month, we're celebrating the love obviously the romantic love, but also the love towards the friends, towards going out, towards the city itself, and so forth. And we end up with Gregorjevo, which is a Slovene version of Valentine's, and with a really cute event created by our children when they're putting their homemade little boats on the river, so with the little candle in it, so they flush the darkness away, and the spring is going to be welcome. That's a near future. However, to go on a big, grander scale is what future holds is a little bit of uncertainty in general. However, we are very, very keen on working on these, let's say, cool-off zones with small pockets, CO2 offset parks. So these are the serious things that we work on due to, obviously, the climate change. And so we're addressing that too, because we really, really need to, for us who live there, first of all, but also for everyone who comes to Ljubljana to feel comfortable, even if it's hot or, even if it's a hot day.
Well, you're doing everything right, it sounds like. Sustainable tourism, and you can't spell Slovenia without love. And Ljubljana means beloved, so this is a really good city to come to. I'm sure you'll fall in love with it. I certainly have. Every expat I've ever met has as well. Locals too. So thank you so much for spending time with us, and thank you for working so hard, flying all over the planet, trying to promote our wonderful city.